All right, we are finishing up chapter 14 in economics, government expenditures, with one of the major expenditure programs that the government is spending money on. It's one of our mandatory spending items, and it's also considered a transfer payment. It's something called Social Security. So it is a transfer payment system run by the government. Taxes are deducted from your paycheck and then in turn go to the government. They sit there for a half a second and then they are immediately sent out to grandma, grandpa, or someone who is retired. Social Security was started back in 1935 by President Roosevelt, and this was a post-Great Depression safety net kind of a program. At the beginning, only 1% came out of the employee's paycheck and only 1% was matched by the employer. So it was a total of 2% of income. Currently, we have 6.2% coming from the employee side and 6.2% coming from the employer side. You'll hear me say often that you are more expensive than just your hourly rate of pay. And this is one of the reasons for that, because only half of Social Security is coming out of your paycheck. The other half is coming out as an expense to the company. As we look at Social Security, you're going to pay into it. And as soon as you get a job that has a W-4, whether you file a 1040 tax return or not, or you file a tax return and maybe you get all of your federal income tax back, Social Security is different. Social Security at 6.2% is taken from you and sent off to the government, and it accumulates. And you're given credit for the amount of quarters you work. Now, the requirement to be able to get anything out of Social Security is you have to have put in 40 working quarters. That equates to about 10 years to be eligible. Now, they do not have to be consecutive. If you are in the workforce a couple, 4 or 5 years, you turn around and then stay home with kids, and then 10 years later you go back, you'll start up your accumulation phase and you'll just keep plucking money in there. A portion of that 6.2% is deducted from your paycheck each year, starting from $1 to roughly it's in the 120 to 130,000. This number here is going to change on an annual basis. I want to say the number is maybe up to 135,000 now. And once you've reached that level, then they say, wow, you've kind of done your fair share. So January 1, Clem starts and he gets a paycheck and Clem earns $1,000, right? They hold Social Security tax out of my paycheck, send it off to the government for me. And they just keep going. And on that math, I'd maybe earn, probably $24,000, right? $1,000 per pay period, first to the month, end of the month, $2,000 a month times 12 months, $24,000, right? That's under the limit here, the base. So every single paycheck I have is going to have tax taken out of it, Social Security tax taken out of it. I can choose whether I want to have federal or state income tax taken out of it, but my employer is required to take this 6.2% out my paycheck before I get it. Now, let's say Clem makes $5,000, earns $5,000 a pay period. So I earn $5,000 the first of the month, or the 15th of the month, and the last of the month. And so that's $10,000 a month times 12 months. Even if I earn $120,000 every single paycheck, they're taking 6.2 cents out of every dollar I earn for this Social Security tax. So let's say I earn $10,000 a paycheck. So $10,000 in my first paycheck, $10,000 in my second. That's $20,000 a month for the month of January, February, March, April, May, June. So 20 plus Now, come July, at some point in time in July, they're going to say, you know what, Clem, we don't have to withhold 6.2% out of your paycheck because you've already paid your fair share. We're saying you got to pay Social Security until you've earned 127,000, 130,000, whatever the number actually is right now. Anything above and beyond that, you've done your fair share. We're not going to have any taken out of your paycheck. Same thing from the employer's side, right? Employers got to come up with 6.2% until you've earned 127, 130,000 that particular year. Once you do, they can say, yep, we've done our fair share. But then January 1 of the next year starts and you got to do it again. Some people have said, you know what, maybe this is a change we could make to help make Social Security a little bit more solvent. We'll get to that in a minute. So you start out with the collection phase. You got to put in at least 40 quarters or 10 years worth. And the amount you put in will also determine what you're able to draw out. And you get to the stage where now you're ready to start drawing some out. You can either start drawing out of Social Security what they call early retirement, and that's at age 62. And you would get a 30% reduction in the amount you'd be able to collect. If you were to collect what's called full retirement, you'd wait till, depending on how old you are, age 65 to 67. And again, that's dependent on your birth year. I believe myself, born in 1973, I'm at 67. So I'd have to wait till this age before I could start collecting full Social Security. And if I waited till age 70, I could get up to a 30% increase in the benefits there. So let's do some math to kind of make that make sense. $62 is early retirement. For Clem, 67 is full retirement. And 70 is, I don't know, we'll just call it full plus retirement. If the dollar value that I'm able to collect, and again, it is based off of the amount of money I have paid in over time. Someone who's paid in just the minimum 10 years worth is going to get less than someone who is paid in from age 16 to 67. The amount of money you have put in, you know, if I make $50,000 a year, 6.2% out of all 50, but if maybe I've earned upwards of that 120, 130, logically I've paid more in, so I'm able to get more out. Okay. Let's say my full retirement benefit is $5,000, just making the number up completely. Well, early retirement is going to say, you know what, if you waited till 67, Clem, you get $5,000, but because you took it early, we're only going to give you 70% of that. So I believe that math is 3,500. Whoops, that's a dollar sign. Or if I waited till full plus and I wait till age 70 to start drawing out, because the Social Security Administration would have my money for longer, they'd multiply that by 1.3, and I would get $6,500 a month in a benefit, right? So when you look at it, you ultimately have to decide, how bad do I need the money? And once I poke a hole in the bottom of the bucket, I'm going to get this $3,500 from the day I start drawing till the day I die. Whether that is 1 month or 1 year or 10 years or 50 years. Okay? It is a promise to you that they will pay you this amount. Again, I'm making these numbers up. But it's a promise that they will pay you whatever your amount of retirement is, whether it be starting early, full amount, or waiting till age 70, until you die. You have to decide, well, how healthy am I? How likely am I to die? How long can I live on this 3,500, or should I wait 5 more years to get more money a month? Or could I wait another 3 years after that to get even more? You know, and that's something that a financial planner would be able to help you with, because then they'll know your exact situation, income, expenses, bills. If you paid off your mortgage, do you have a 401k, 403b? Do you have a Roth IRA? That's a financial planning. And if you're interested in those kind of things, that college personal finance would be a great class for you to take. As we look at our last little idea here on Social Security, you heard me say that there's kind of a problem or a challenge or solutions. And here's kind of the picture I always use to explain it. Social Security itself is like a bucket. And in theory, you got people up here paying money in, and you got companies over here paying money in. And in turn, you got grandmas and grandpas There's grandpa with his walker. They got money going out paying grandmas and grandpas. Now, one of the challenges is the baby boom generation. Now, the baby boom generation is the group that was born right after World War II, very large group of people. So there was a wave of people paying a lot into Social Security, so people didn't really worry about it that much. Well, now all of a sudden, these Social Security, these baby boomers are starting to draw out. So the hole in the bottom of the bucket is starting to get bigger, right? And more is getting paid out because there's more baby boomers retiring. Another part of that challenge is birth rates are going down, at least in the US, so less people are paying in. I look at, my own family. Grandpa Clem was one of 8. Grandma Clem was one of 9. Grandpa Tice, my mom's side, was one of 13. And Grandma T was one of 13, right? So they averaged about 10 kids at that level of grandpa age. And again, I know in DC we have bigger families, but then they all had kids. And my dad was one of 3 and my mom was one of 5. Well, my mom and dad got together and had myself and 2 other brothers. Well, then Mrs. Clem and I got together and we got 2 kids. Right? So you go from, a grandpa level averaging 10 in my example, down to say 4.5. Mom was one of 5, down to 3, down to now my level, we're at 2. There's less people paying in. Okay, more people drawing out. And through modern medicine, the amount or the length of time that we are paying out is longer and longer. We're not going to say to, hey, Grandpa, you know what? When you were paying into Social Security, we thought you were going to live to 75, right? You're 85. You should have already died. So we're going to stop paying you your Social Security benefit. We don't do that, right? It's a law promising to pay grandma or grandpa till they die. Well, if they die 1 month in, Social Security kind of got more going in than they paid out. And not looking at it to be funny or sarcastic, just in general, more was paid in that was going out to that person who, died at age 62 in 1 month before they were able to draw any out. Versus, the centenarians who were living to 100, they weren't necessarily planning, life expectancy wasn't planning on those people living to 100, yet they're still going to get their Social Security payment. So one of the challenges or one of the ideas, and this is kind of Mr. Clem on his own soapbox, do we really need a limit? Should we continue to just have 6.2% coming out of Social Security for every single dollar that you get? That's what they do with Medicare. Every dollar you earn, 1.5 pennies goes to Medicare indefinitely. So whether you're a person who's working a $10,000 a year job or 50 or 5 million, $0.015 goes to Medicare for everybody. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. We're just going to use that as kind of a very generalized idea, but that's one solution, right? Other solutions are maybe make them wait longer, which they've done. It used to be 65. Now, for me, it's 67 before I get full benefits. Or it's pay more, right? More than 6.2% going into the bucket. None of them are great ideas. None of them are easy ideas. None of them are easy to sell, but different ways. And it's pretty simple, right? You either have less going out of the bucket or you put more in the bucket. And that's a way, those are the two easiest ways to solve your challenge with Social Security. Just because it's an easy solution doesn't mean it's easy to implement.